Hello everyone, it's Jules from Tarot Adventures with Jules. Today I will be speaking with Kerri from Bouchette Design Shop. Kerri has so many fabulous decks, including a recent Kickstarter of a brand new Marseille Tarot and as well a brand new multifaceted deck, which we will talk about. I'm just going to send an invite here. Yeah, hi Kerri, how are
Hey,
you?
good. How are you? Can you hear me? Oh, good.
Can, yes.
Good. I was having sound things. I was like, oh no, sound.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst. I've had glitches with that before, and it's so frustrating.
I know.
Um,
I was trying to wear my earpiece, but it wasn't working. So, anyway,
uh,
how are you
yeah, no,
doing?
it's perfect. Good, good.
Good.
It's so good to
You
see you. Oh my goodness, thank you for
too.
joining me.
Thank
I am
you.
so excited. Oh my goodness. You have so many amazing things in the works right now, and I can't wait to chat with you about all of it.
Aw.
Um, you have a preview on your feed of it's the Wanderlust collection, and that is a combination of your three miniature decks, right?
Yeah.
So let's start talking about that. I have the little mini decks for the numerology and Ara astrology here, and they're absolutely stunning. Like you do
Aw.
such beautiful work. Like this is
Thank
just,
you.
oh, it's gorgeous. And the numerology, like it's so fascinating to me looking at the correspondences with numbers, not just with suits, and especially with the Marseille style, you can
Yeah.
cross-reference across, you can see the different correspondences too. But I mean, just the artwork that you've included is so
Thank
beautiful.
thank
So
you.
I think that if I understand correctly, the Wanderlust collection has these two decks, and then there's also Sabbats and Moon Cycles, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I'd love to talk a bit more.
there's five in there.
Wow.
Here's the new box. So
Oh my goodness.
this just came in. I wanted to send you images. It just literally came in.
Oh, it's
Um,
gorgeous. Look at
yeah, and
that.
it's so here and the cards are. I was really blown away because I don't remember when I did the first little mini. I think it was
Mhm.
had to be a couple years ago.
Yeah,
And I had always wanted to put it into a regular size,
yeah.
but the production, so those little minis I was able to have printed in the US.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
that's really rare, I'll be
Yeah,
honest. Like printing in the US is not easy to do. Um, so I really wanted it in this format, but this is overseas,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's where we have access for good decks and stuff. So um, the cardstock is velvety, and it's
Oh,
hard to see on here, but all of
beautiful.
the borders on the front and the back are
Oh,
gold. So they just
gorgeous.
kind of
Oh
like
my
have a little
gosh.
gold shimmer. It's hard to see on there.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, but there are color cards. So
Yeah.
cards describing, just color, numerology, moons of the year, Sabbats of the year, and then the astrology.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So here's like some of the color.
Oh, that's gorgeous. The letter work is just stunning. I love
Yeah,
that you've
so
included
it's just,
color correspondences.
yeah, thank you. So, I mean, these are just so much fun because I always say I have a really bad memory. I mean,
Mhm.
really bad. I've been reading tarot since 15, and I tell you to this day, I have to look, like, if it's not coming intuitively for some reason,
Yeah,
I look up and I'm like, well, what are other people saying, or what is the like
yeah.
book meaning this? Because I think we all probably do this, but if you've been reading for a while, it starts off first, right, where you're like book, and then it
Yeah,
goes intuition.
yeah,
So then once you like learn to follow your intuition for so long, you're like, oh yeah, now I forgot what it really means.
yeah,
So I
absolutely.
love these kinds of cards because you can just go back and
Oh, it's
reference stuff.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I can relate to that so much because I formed my own understanding and associations with certain cards over the years, but then sometimes I'll pull something in a different context, and it's super helpful to be able to
Yeah.
reference what the original, RWS meanings are or whatever else, just for
Yeah.
context. Because sometimes different things can mean different things depending on where it's falling in a spread or where it's falling on any given day, right?
Totally.
So that's really helpful to have that reference point.
Yeah.
And for anyone new to moon cycle work or astrology or numerology, I mean, I just love how detailed and yet how concise. Oh, hey, it's Jenna. That's so lovely.
Oh, Jen, hello, my love.
Oh, that's amazing. So good to see you.
Aw,
Oh, so
I
sweet.
know.
Yeah,
Love our
I just love
Jenna.
the information. Yes, Jenna's fabulous. Sorry, I'm just like raving about this, but I love the information you include because it's so accessible to anyone new to working with numerology. But then if you're someone who's worked with it a lot, having those reference points and signposts are also really, really helpful. So I really appreciate how you put this together.
Oh, thank
And yeah, it's just lovely. And when I'm doing work, like I have specific readings that I do for solar return, and I always pull out your decks for those readings because I find they work so beautifully. And then having this as like the signpost, because I look at someone's sun, moon, and rising, and so having this at the top is just such a great marker to be able to
you.
correspond with the different aspects that I'm looking at. So that's really, really beautiful. Oh, that's so
Thank
exciting.
you. Yeah.
Um, so those decks, the Wanderlust collection and the Metanoi, did I say that, pronounce that
Yeah, I know. I have the hardest deck names, I've decided. I said
lovely? I just want to make sure I'm
it's
pronouncing
like
it properly.
very challenging. It's metanoia.
Metanoia?
Metanoia, yeah. Yeah, the Wanderlust, actually I just this morning hit the approve button on
Ah,
on the metanoia.
oh,
So
oh,
both of
that's
those decks are
incredible.
now going into printing production.
That's amazing.
And Wanderlust is probably going to go into production like today or Monday.
Oh,
So
that's incredible.
they'll
That's
all
so
come to me in
exciting.
December,
Yeah,
hoping there's no shipping issues. I've seen lately
yeah,
again shipping issues, so I'm a little worried
yeah,
about that,
yeah.
but that would be the only holdup.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if it comes in December, great. Or, New Year is always
Yeah,
great. I always find after the holidays, it's a little bit of a letdown after all the anticipation. So having something to look forward
I
to first thing in the
agree.
new year is
Yes,
lovely.
I'm with you on
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So, I was so curious. The Metanoia deck, it's such a gorgeous take on the Marseille. Like I'm an RWS reader at heart. That's what I've worked with for the longest period of time. And I found with the traditional Tarot de Marseille, the images didn't hit home as much for me, just in terms of a visual aspect. No offense to the original
Yeah.
creator, like it is beautiful.
Oh,
It just
yeah.
wasn't my own personal aesthetic. So
Right.
now that fabulous creators such as yourself and Charlie Claire Burgess. They have a deck coming out, the Game Marseille, which I'm so excited about.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Krista Flute for Anti-Case Tarot, I was just talking with her yesterday about her fabulous Marseille Prendre Vie, which is currently on Kickstarter as well.
Oh,
And then Tom Benjamin,
yeah.
he's done, Ben Jolivet from Tom Benjamin Tarot has done an amazing, I think it's, what's the name of his Marseille deck? Multi Marseille. I made a note of it. I was,
Oh, yeah.
but I think that he takes the original images and then updates them to be more inclusive
Yeah.
of diversity of backgrounds and everything else. Um, but it's gotten all of these amazing decks coming out. It's gotten me so excited about the
Yeah.
Marseille approach to
Yeah.
tarot. And I read Ben's books. He's got two Tarot on Earth, and I think it's called the Tarot Handbook.
Yes, he's
Um,
great. His books are
oh,
awesome. I know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
incredible. So I guess that's a very, very incredibly long-winded way of asking you what inspired you to make a Marseille deck.
Um, so I actually love a Marseille deck. I love the
Mhm.
simplicity of it.
Oh,
I
it's beautiful.
love
Yeah,
how simple it is. Sometimes, I mean, I usually switch between the Rider Waite and the Marseille, kind of depending on my mood. But
yeah.
sometimes it's nice to allow the intuition, which is what a Marseille is.
Hmm.
It is allowing you and giving you the space to um, tap into your higher consciousness,
Yeah,
tap into energy, what have you. And it's also numerology, right? So it has a lot of the
yeah,
numerology characteristics. But it just offers a little bit of a freer format.
yeah,
So you can get an idea of the pips are the pips, but it's like for mine they're floral, and maybe the florals are more extravagant on one card. Maybe they're not on
Yeah.
another, and that goes for anyone's design of a
Yeah.
Marseille. So you kind of start like formulating what each card means for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just love that. It sometimes it can be intimidating because it is a freer format, but
Yeah.
I think it's just fun. Like, why not experiment with it? It's a total, and it's the oldest format, right,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Tarot. So,
The original.
yeah. So I don't know. And I just think they're so beautiful. I mean, to me,
Mhm.
I think a Marseille is really chic, and
Yeah.
I would picture a Marseille deck on a
Oh,
runway, like on a couture
yeah.
runway show.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
how I see a Marseille.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, I think it is. Isn't it Gucci, or I think it's Gucci. He's
Oh.
in love with the designer for Gucci is a tarot reader. Yeah,
Oh
he
my
loves.
goodness.
I think
That's
it's
so
Gucci.
awesome.
In fact, if you go online, he's done some small movies
Oh
of
my
his.
gosh.
I want to say no. Wait, hold on. I feel like is it Gucci? Somebody, if anyone is
Yeah.
on, there's yeah. But
That's
anyway, it's
awesome.
yeah, just it's just so much fun. And I did do people in these just because it's so traditional.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I absolutely love the aesthetic of your deck. Like you've taken something that is simple and elegant and just completely finessed it in such a beautiful way and brought your own gorgeous art style to it. And it just, for me, it just made the deck come alive in a way that the original is very lovely and it's very elegant and very
Yeah.
simple, but yours just added a little something special to it that made it hit home for me personally
Oh,
so much more in a way that is
thank
so beautiful. Um, so when you were approaching doing the deck, like you had mentioned that some things were easier than others in terms of interpretation. What were some of the challenging cards to reinterpret for you
yeah.
or to bring to life?
Yeah, well, when I first started, I actually started with animals
Oh,
as the
cool.
supports,
Yeah,
and I was like, and I actually only think I got like a couple cards in, and I was like, this is not, no, this
yeah,
is not working because a Marseille is so specific, like
yeah.
that. I felt like it would just throw everything off. So I I sort of there's always one card I find in a deck, like in the Meraki it was the King of Cups. I
Mm,
don't know, I illustrated that card like 5 times. I could not figure out that card.
yeah.
In this one it was the Page of Wands.
Oh,
I
okay.
could not, and I kind of hate to say, but still to this day I look at that card and I'm like, is that right?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's so weird how that happens, but
yeah.
that card for me, I don't know. I just couldn't get it right. But other than that, I feel like I, they just kind of came to me. And that's kind of how I
Amazing.
do the decks. I don't, so for the Marseille, because it's so specific, I did
Yeah.
look at a Marseille deck, then I put it down. Then I
Mhm.
did the deck, then
Yeah.
I picked the Marseille back up, and then I looked at card to card to make
Oh,
sure I
nice.
wasn't missing any very specific items.
Yeah.
Um, but
I
I
love
think,
that though. Like that's amazing because you're getting the inspiration, but then you're creating something completely your own. And it's nice to cross-reference and
yeah,
there's so many beautiful little details in those cards, and it's lovely to include them.
yeah,
But I love that you took that inspiration and then set it aside and made it your own. I mean, I think that's what's so powerful about these original materials
yes,
is that it's there in a certain way and it can inspire you, but you can take what it is and then create something that's completely your own from it as well, which
yeah,
is so beautiful. That's
yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. It's kind of like it's just following the intuitive hits or imagery that's coming, and then you just lay it out, and then if you have to go back and update it.
Hmm.
Um, but it was kind of interesting. I was chatting with Zara from Kitten Chops, and
Oh,
she
nice.
actually has a Marseille coming
Oh,
out,
oh,
which
fantastic.
yeah, which is absolutely beautiful. And we were kind of laughing because the swords cards,
Yeah.
which here's one of them here.
Oh, that's
I
gorgeous.
cannot tell you how hard this was. If you look inside of here, they all crisscross.
Oh my
I,
goodness.
I was literally pulling my hair out because I was like drawing this and I was like, I cannot figure out the crisscross.
Yeah.
Like it was so, and Zara was like, yeah, she was like, yeah, that was ridiculous.
Oh,
And
that would be so difficult.
it's so weird how that would like, and then
Yeah.
the wands
Oh,
also has the crisscross, but
oh,
for some reason in the swords, the way that it's curved. So that was the
yeah.
other very interesting um, thing that took so long. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is like insanity. Like,
It's amazing what ends up being a challenge in the end. Like sometimes the thing that you think is going to cause the biggest
yeah,
challenge or roadblock ends up being easier than you anticipate, and then something like
I,
crisscrossing swords
I
will
know.
end up posing so much more of a challenge.
Yeah,
Right? It makes sense because visually it's quite complicated and intricate, right? So that makes sense.
totally.
But
Yeah.
I love how you've incorporated the florals into those cards. Like they look just so elegant. It's
Oh, thank
beautiful.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
did you have what were some of your favorite cards to draw for that deck?
Um, I would say so. I think the wands was one of my favorite suits to draw. And then the star. I just,
Oh, that's
I don't know.
gorgeous.
I just absolutely
Oh, it's
was like
beautiful.
entranced when I was drawing that. And I love the
Yeah.
coins.
Oh,
I
that's
love
beautiful.
the coins. And
Yeah.
then, as always, in any tarot deck, aces are my favorite cards.
Oh,
I just
that's gorgeous.
am obsessed with. I mean, if I ever pull an ace in a reading for me, which is actually kind of rare,
Okay.
it's made my
Yeah.
day. I'm like that. Yeah, I just love aces.
There's so much
Um,
pure potential in them, you know? It's like the beginning of the
yeah,
journey. There's infinite possibility. There's something so hopeful and full of potential with the aces. It's lovely. Yeah.
yeah, I know. I feel as though anything I felt was halted is only in
Yeah.
my mind when I
Yeah.
pull an ace. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
um so yeah, and interestingly, again, I just think like the pips
Oh,
for me were so
beautiful.
fluid. I just
Yeah.
it was very, very fluid for me.
That's
And then
awesome.
I was worried about people,
Mm.
but now I mean my people are, it's not for everybody. I mean they're more
Oh,
characterized,
that's
but
beautiful.
I really had so much fun with it. I
Yeah.
played
Oh,
with
that's
them,
fabulous.
you
I
know?
love that waistcoat and the jacket, like with the
Yeah,
purple. It's so
yeah.
elegant.
I just was like,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna do people, they're gonna be in costume.
Yes. Oh
So,
my goodness. Well, if you have the
um,
option to go costume or not, why wouldn't you pick costume? I mean, it's so elegant and so
yeah,
vibrant and so expressive. There's something so lovely about that. Oh, I
I
love
know.
it.
And
And
this
it's
is my
very
favorite
fitting.
one.
Oh my gosh.
I love
Ah, I
her.
love it.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So they're just
That reminds me
so
a little bit of like the pictures that I've seen of Jane Austen, just the way that
oh
she's sitting,
yeah.
like with the kind of like, and just like the way
Oh
she's
my
posing is so lovely.
gosh. I
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
even think about that.
yeah, just something about her pose and the way that she's kind of looking at the viewer. I'm a huge Jane Austen fan, and I watch the films with my kids all the
Oh
time, and we're all kind of
yeah.
very much in that zone. But it very much reminds me. I
Wow.
love that so much.
You're kind of making me think like even this guy, I kind of almost
Yeah,
like he's kind of like a beanpole. Like he's like a
yeah,
bean. I almost
yeah.
feel like now that you said that, I'm thinking of literature.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. There's a
um
very literary feel to it. Like it really
oh
feels
yeah.
like it could be characters stepping out of a
Mhm.
novel in
Mhm.
really beautiful, like elegant style. I love that so
So
much.
yeah, that's interesting. Um
So,
yeah, I just
yeah,
had fun with this whole deck. I don't know. I
oh, it's
just
beautiful.
loved creating this deck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful creative outlet, and the elegance with which you've framed all of the cards is so beautiful.
Oh,
What
thank
do the card
you.
backs look like again
Oh
for that
yeah.
one?
The card backs are
Oh, Your flowers are so stunning. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank
Oh,
you.
that's
So
gorgeous.
yeah, every deck, has the floral background
Yep,
theme, so which I think is
yep,
great. So if you're lining them up or
yeah,
you're using them together, it's just
yeah.
uh,
It flows together
yeah.
really beautifully. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So are the pre-orders for those two decks closed now, or are they still available on your site?
So they close tonight, and I have had a
Okay,
few people say, "How do I get there?" It might be, I
okay,
don't know, it might be a little confusing, but it's on my website, so bouchettedesign.com. And then on the top,
yeah.
you'll see Bouchette Design Shop.
Oh,
And that's
perfect.
where you
Yeah,
click. And they'll
oh, that's
close
awesome.
tonight,
Okay,
sometime tonight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So there's still an opportunity to pop in. That's
Yeah.
so great. Yeah, they're so beautiful. So I wanted to just cycle back to the Wanderlust Tarot. What do the backs for those ones look like? And is
Oh,
that the same size as the tarot decks?
yeah. Same
Yeah.
size as a tarot. And then,
Oh,
so
but the
this,
backs will have all the information
yeah,
on them, right?
the
So
back
yeah,
have
yeah, of
all the
course.
information. So
Oh,
like, for
that's
example, like
incredible.
here's a front,
Yes.
and
Oh
then
my goodness.
here's a
Yeah,
back. So
that's
all
amazing.
the what I did with this deck was I kept all the fronts exactly the same.
Oh, that's
So
gorgeous.
all the fronts are
Oh, look at that
very
tree. Oh, that's so
streamlined.
elegant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're more like an oracle. So
yeah,
you could
absolutely.
leave this out
Yeah.
and it could be an oracle, but then every single card when you flip it over has its own.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's beautiful. And I love the
yeah.
accent that you have in the top corner there. Is that
Yeah,
leaves? Oh,
the
gorgeous.
Sabbath decks all have
Yeah.
leaves, like
Oh,
different leaves
beautiful.
floating around. So um
Gorgeous.
yeah, so this could be used as an oracle or
Yeah.
as, just what it's for,
Yeah.
informational.
Absolutely. Oh, that's lovely. And I have the original Radiant Crystal deck, which is the larger kind of oracle size format. You've also just re-released a tarot size version of this deck as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's so lovely because then you can I mean, I already combined this deck with the tarot decks. It works
yeah.
beautifully just as it is, but having everything be uniform and corresponding
Yeah,
is really lovely as well.
it's
And I think
yeah.
you had changed one of the fonts for that as well, right?
Yes,
For the
so
reissue. Yeah.
yes, thank you. Every font on the Meraki Tarot and the new
Mhm.
Radiant Crystal cards are all very easy to read. So,
Oh,
I mean,
that's
just like
fabulous.
these decks here, very, very easy.
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh, that's gorgeous.
using, there is a script in here, but it's a
Yeah.
very, very readable
Oh,
script. Um,
oh, that's awesome.
and yeah, I think it was challenging. And I mean, I have really aging eyes. So for me, I
Yeah.
can't read anything. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
even like, that's getting a little hard for me.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
everything's
great.
been
It just makes it
updated.
more,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes it really accessible for everybody. That's wonderful. I mean, that being said, I love the scripts that you had on here. I mean, they're absolutely stunning. But I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how much information you include in these crystal card decks. I mean, you've got the keywords, the astrological sign, the chakra association and affirmation energies, and then an herbal reference. And that's just
Yeah.
such a beautiful um, capsule of
Oh,
information for each of the cards, right? It's such a nice way to add that energy to whatever it is you're working with. I love to, if I'm doing a reading for someone, to pull one of these kind of at the end to
oh yeah.
round out the reading so that there's a little bit of energy
Yeah.
to work with moving forward. It's a beautiful way to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I do
wonderful.
that too.
Mhm.
I generally almost every day I'll pull a crystal card
Oh, that's
just for the
amazing.
energy. Like
Yeah.
I feel like tarot or, is more of the message,
Hmm.
but the crystals are just more of the energy that you
Yeah.
need to carry or take
Yeah.
on or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that
Mm-hmm.
so much. And you also have the beautiful Tara Lenormand as well, which has been so lovely to work with. Again, like your illustration style is just
Thank
gorgeous. I mean,
you.
this moon card, it reminds me of a summer evening with the full
Oh,
moon, the
oh yeah.
flowers, like it's just, and
I
this
love it.
clover, like I mean, all of these, I could
Thank
flip through this whole thing. It's just so
you.
beautiful. And you also have just released a Lenormand cloth, right?
Yeah, a new
It's gray.
second edition cloth.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's beautiful.
Um,
I
and I
have
wish I
the
had these with me. I don't have that up here, but
oh, that's okay.
uh,
Yeah. I
yeah,
have the first edition one and it's so fun to work with. It's so lovely to be able to lay everything out. I'm still getting used to the Grand Tableau because
yeah,
I'm relatively new to the Normand as a practice, but it's been nice pulling like 2 card combinations or 3 card
yeah,
combinations, and I finally got brave enough to try a 9 card combination,
yeah,
and I did pull a Grand Tableau, and I took a picture and posted it to my feed for posterity's sake, and I'm so curious now to reference back to that because I got some distinct
yeah.
messages from it, but I feel like in a lot of cases it's nice to reflect back after the fact
Oh,
and see how
yeah.
things are kind of coming through. Like, yeah,
Oh, yeah. That is reflecting back is huge. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like I have books where I've written spreads and done
Mhm.
readings from like like literally like 2 decades
Oh,
ago, and I'll go back. I
amazing.
mean, that to me, like that's the coolest thing about reading is that
Yeah,
you go back
yep,
and see how it
absolutely.
panned out or
Hmm.
um but actually the Tarot Lenormand, I'm doing a new tarot deck and it is going to match the same um
Oh,
yeah, the same illustration style
beautiful.
as the Lenormand.
Oh,
And
that's
it's going to be a bridge
gorgeous.
size. So it's
Oh,
going to be a
I
little
love that.
yeah, I'm super I've started illustrating it and it is
Oh, that's
I'm so
so
excited about it. Yeah.
exciting. Oh my God, yeah, because this aesthetic is just, oh, I love it. That's, and then the fact that it's bridge size
I
as well and everything kind of
love
corresponds together.
yeah, I
Oh,
love the bridge size because so the little I did a little metanoia
oh yeah, you
Marseille. I did the
had
little
a
mini,
smaller size for that.
but
Yeah.
and I absolutely it's adorable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the cutest
Oh
thing.
my goodness.
But oh yeah, here's the painted edges, by the way. I forgot to
Oh,
talk about the edges.
gorgeous.
But I love
Yeah.
bridge.
Yeah.
I like throw bridge a deck in my purse. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just love it, and I've
Yeah.
been like, I have to make a bridge tarot.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
gonna kind of go along with the Tarot Lenormand style. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
gorgeous. Yeah, there's something I'm going on a trip next week, and Krista has a little mini version of the Marseille Prendre Vie, and it's very small. Like it's like I want to say like about this big. It's 2 1/4 by 1 1/4, I
yeah.
think. So it's officially the smallest deck. But it's so nice to be able to just tuck that in my bag, or I've traveled with this one before because it's small enough that I can just kind
Oh,
of tuck it in, right? Put it in a
yeah,
nice deck bag, keep it nice and safe, and then, it fits in a suitcase and it's wonderful for travel. Or if you're going out during the day, I
yeah.
find that it works really well to be able to have this smaller reference
Oh,
size.
total.
And how awesome that it's like bridge size and that's the size that you're focusing on. Because so often, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but there's usually a larger edition and then a smaller edition. But just to have a special small
Yeah,
edition, just
yeah.
in and of
Just a
itself, like that's
little,
so magical.
yeah,
Yeah,
small edition.
yeah,
Um,
I love that.
yeah. So, yeah, I've been doing that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be fun.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, and I often pull cards from different decks in a daily spread that I have, and I love seeing how Tarot and Lenormand and Oracle will work together because I usually pick decks based on the feel of an astrological season. So, it's just an aesthetic that I think might work well together or whatever else. And it's so fascinating to me to see what comes up and how things correspond. And like we were just talking about reflecting back later on, like some days I'll pull a card in the morning and I'm like, why is this card showing up? And then in the
yeah,
evening when I look back, I'm like, oh, that's why that showed up because this
yeah,
person came up or this situation came up. And, it almost in a way prepares you for it, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
Totally.
Like that actually happened when my second child was born. She was 7 weeks early, and I think it was like the Mystic Fairy Tarot. That was the first tarot deck that I bought, and it was
Yeah,
by Barbara Moore. And I had pulled, I was such a tarot newbie at that point, and I pulled a Celtic Cross for my friend, and I pulled a Celtic Cross for myself. And the two things that I got from that spread, I don't even remember what the cards were at this point,
yeah.
but the two messages that I got were to trust my intuition and that the thing I was most afraid of wouldn't be as bad as I feared. And
Wow.
without missing a beat, I said, I'm so afraid that this kid's going to come early that was at noon, and she was born at 8:37 after like a 4-hour labor. It was like super like,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
I was in so much shock through that whole experience. And
Yeah.
I just remember sitting in the hospital room after she was born, like the next day, and thinking, oh, like I got exactly what I needed. And that was the moment that tarot really clicked for
Yeah.
me. And I was like, oh, this is actually a really powerful tool that is super
Yeah.
helpful and was there exactly when I needed it, right? Like it's
Oh my
amazing
God.
in
That is
hindsight, those
amazing.
practices.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
almost gave you
yeah,
like a comfort,
it
that
did.
you didn't,
Yeah,
that it just gave you a comfort to know, okay, everything's going to be okay. And
yeah.
I mean, whether you were thinking about it or not, it just was a subconscious,
It was in the
like, yeah,
background,
okay.
comforting me through what was a
Yeah.
very, scary experience because I thought I had, 7 weeks of pregnancy left, and all of a sudden there's
Yeah.
my kid, right? And 33 weeks is at that cusp where you don't know whether, I didn't know whether her lungs were going to be fully developed or not, or, but it ended up working
Yeah.
out in the end. But it was such a source of comfort for me, even the next day, reflecting on
Yeah.
that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow. But yeah, that kind of
Amazing.
reflecting back is a really powerful practice.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you also have, I've got the first two editions of the Meraki Tarot here,
Yeah.
which are both, I switch back and forth between both of them because the illustrations are technically the same, but the way that you've formatted them with borders and no borders and the different card backs, like, it feels like a sister deck
Mm,
where it's like, it's not exactly the same. It's like, they complement each other beautifully, but they're both distinct in their own
yeah.
special way. And so it's been
Yeah.
really amazing working
Oh,
with them both, and you've got a third edition out now. So what are the tweaks or differences that you made between editions
the
for that one?
the third edition is very similar to the second.
Yeah.
The third edition has a brand new box.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
did update some of the illustrations. They're not
Mhm.
drastic. So
Yeah.
there is a workbook that went with the second edition. It still goes with the
Yeah.
third.
Oh,
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, and I kept the backs the same because I'm just
Mhm.
obsessed with that back.
Oh,
It
this
just
card
works.
back is
Yeah,
just,
it
oh,
just
love it.
worked,
Hmm.
works.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there were some illustration updates, and I try not to obsess because I'm always, um, I could go back and redo everything. I could always go back and read, and so I
Yeah.
have to, unless it's something I absolutely have to change. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let it
Yeah.
be what it
Yeah.
is. But interestingly, I still have people today asking for the first edition. They want the
Oh,
scalloped
yep.
borders.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, if decks weren't so expensive, I need to make, I might bring that back, but it's
Yeah.
so, yeah, still I think borders aren't a thing for people. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
love both. Like they're it gives a very different
oh,
feel to the deck with the
totally.
border versus not. I love them both equally.
Yeah.
I guess you could always do a special release for those that were interested, and if there's enough
Yeah,
pre-orders, then look at
yeah,
doing it. But it's
exactly.
hard to know because I find like Kickstarter is a blessing and a curse. Like it's a wonderful platform and it's a great way to get your work out to people who maybe don't already follow you on Instagram. Like I feel like there's a whole community
Yeah,
associated with Kickstarter launches. But I found in the last year, especially, I mean, with inflation and everything being
yeah,
so ridiculous, I think it's hard financially, but also there seems to be like ebbs and flows with Kickstarter where things will be wildly successful or they won't. And to me, I can't see a rhyme or reason for it.
right.
Like there's things that I've seen launch that are so incredible and don't get funding, and then there's
Yeah,
other things that are also equally fabulous but just take off, right? So
yeah,
it's so hard to know. So it's always, I would imagine, as a deck creator, it's always a bit of a gamble trying to figure out how to navigate that process,
yeah.
right? But it's,
It's
yeah,
really tough.
yeah.
If I needed a crystal ball, that would be one of the things I would want it for. I
Yeah.
actually have a crystal
Oh,
ball, but I haven't asked it
amazing.
yet.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, it's very hard to navigate. very hard to navigate. But I would
Yeah,
say this year in particular has been very, very
yeah,
rough. It's just been one of
absolutely.
those years where personally, if I went back in time, I probably would have skipped this year on Kickstarter
Yeah,
and just done a pre-order on my site or what have
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, it's challenging.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think economy, yeah, I think probably economy. Sometimes I also wonder if the industry itself just,
Mhm.
trends,
Yeah,
whatever it is,
yeah,
is it
yeah,
ebbing and flowing? Is it at a downturn right now?
yeah.
Um,
And it's hard too because there's so many pirated decks too within our
oh,
community. Like I know so many creators, like Rachel from the Wandering Moon, like she's actually taking a few of her, like she's not creating a few of her decks anymore because they've been pirated so much.
mm,
And it's frustrating to me when people willfully buy cheaper quality decks because, oh well, it's more affordable and I can't afford, like I'd rather, if I could only afford to buy one deck, I would buy an authentic deck
yeah,
from a creator just because from an integrity standpoint, I don't feel right supporting someone's work being stolen,
yeah.
essentially, right? But that's been such a huge issue within the tarot community with decks, with content, I mean, with accounts even.
Oh,
Like it's ridiculous how widespread that is. And it's unfortunate. I'm not
yeah.
sure what the solution is, but I'm sure as a deck creator it must be absolutely devastating because I know it's a lot of time and energy that you're pouring into the work that you do, right? And it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it gets
I mean, it's
something.
horrible to see.
Mhm.
So me, I don't pay. So this is how I operate. I
Mhm.
have found two pirated decks, and
Mhm.
I'll tell you, our community is beautiful. I have
Yeah,
people that write that are like, just so you know, I see this
yeah.
deck. I mean, I love our community. I love
Mhm.
the people that have backed me. It's just, there's no words really for how
Yeah,
awesome. And those are ways I have found two pirated decks. And
yeah,
in those two cases, I actually emailed the person,
yeah.
and both cases they were like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and they took it
Oh,
down.
I'm so happy to hear that.
That was
That's
those two
great.
cases.
Yeah.
Now, I am the kind of person, this may honestly just be my age because I've seen a hell of a
Yeah.
lot of shit. I
Yeah.
don't pay attention to these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't have time. I don't pay
Yeah.
attention to negativity.
Mm.
If someone is trying to pirate, if I see it, okay, I'll say something.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can only be as clear as I can be
Yeah.
on Instagram, and I have a full website, where I'm
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah.
Um, this is where you get it.
Yeah.
I'm not on Amazon.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. A lot of times, if a creator goes on Amazon, it almost opens a window to pirating because,
Mm.
well, if you're on Amazon,
Yeah.
that means it
And
could
then
be
how do you
anywhere.
figure out
Yeah,
whether you're getting a deck on sale or whether it's a copied version?
yeah.
Yeah, it makes
Now,
it
this is
really
unless you're with a
difficult.
publisher. If you're
Yeah.
just kind of like a soul, a
Yeah.
publisher will, that's totally different. But
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
indie,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's really hard. It's disheartening, but
Mm-hmm.
as good solid human beings, I always feel like we can't let that penetrate our
Yeah.
energetic field because we got a lot we got
Yeah.
to do. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot we're doing.
Yeah.
And if I'm sitting here taking in that negativity, I can't be productive. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I let it
absolutely. I know I spent some time because I've had a lot of scam accounts kind of steal my photos and content and stuff.
go.
And
Yeah.
for a while, I was kind of trying to preemptively seek it out and block and all that kind of stuff. But half the time, I'm already pre-blocked anyway, and there's not much I can do. So I've stopped even looking. And if
Yeah.
someone is ridiculous enough to follow me with my account name, then yes, I'll block and report.
Right. What
But
can you do?
I don't even read the reports from Instagram because they always say they're not doing anything anyway. So I'm like, you know
No.
what? This is just eating away at my peace. So I'm gonna do
Yes.
what I can do. And I know that there's been a lot of pushback about the algorithm and you know, lack of engagement, all of those things, and it's incredibly frustrating. But for
Yeah.
me, I feel like there's still enough of a core community and connection to be found that it's worth investing time and energy into. And I'm just
Yeah.
trying to acknowledge the difficulties and do what I can. Like if someone's got a scam account, then I'll block and report it right away
Yes.
and those kinds of things. So I'm trying to do what I can while also not letting it
That's exactly
overtake
it.
the community that I have and have found here, because
Yeah.
that's been amazing. I mean, I've been part of lots of other communities leading up to this, but there's something very special about the tarot
Oh my
and
God.
metaphysical community, the amount of support. And I find there's so much less competition than there is in other fields that I can see as an
Yep.
outsider looking in. People really support each other. Like it's not like a us or them mentality. It's more of a let me support my fellow creator and I know that they're going to support me. And I mean it's not perfect, but there is a sense of community and a sense of mutual support that I really
Oh yeah.
I love about this particular community. It's been lovely. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Totally. If we're not, yeah, I mean, to me, if it's not supportive, if we're not
Hmm.
supporting each other, then why even be present?
What's the
Like,
point? Yeah.
what's the point? We're all different. If we were like all from the Borg, okay, I
Hmm.
could see how that, if any of you guys are Star Trek.
Oh my gosh, my kids have just gotten so into that.
I
It
love
surprised me
Star,
actually.
yeah,
We've been into Star Wars for
yeah.
years,
Oh yeah.
and they're like ripe for something new, and we ended up
Oh,
watching Picard, and we've been watching like the new reboot series of movies, and they're into it. Like they want to go
oh
back to
my,
Captain Kirk, old
yes.
school,
How can
all of it.
anyone?
Oh my gosh, we're gonna be like inundated
Yeah,
with Star Trek for the next six
I
months. I
love
start it, and
it.
I'm
Oh
for it. I just
yeah,
and it's a new series that came out, and I'm just
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, Board
I love
Collective,
it.
100%.
I love it.
Amazing.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot to learn about life in
No,
those in
oh
those
my gosh,
shows.
yes.
Um,
And as far as TV shows go, like for the 1960s, they were one of the most um, oh my God, the word just went out of my brain. The most innovative and
yeah.
oh my gosh, perimenopause is such
Oh,
a bitch. I like sometimes will have these words and it'll just poof.
oh yeah.
Progressive. There we go. I found it. It
Oh,
came back.
that's oh my God. I love
But
it.
as far as like TV shows, especially for the 1960s, I mean, it was incredibly progressive. And we
Yeah.
just finished watching The Orville. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh
It's
yeah. Oh,
incredible.
I did. Yes,
Oh,
I did see. Yes.
so good.
Yes.
It's like Star Trek, but with
Yes.
a heavier dose of humor and even more social justice approach.
Yeah.
And it was some of those episodes were so timely and insightful and there's enough humor to be able to offset some of the heavier stuff. But we thoroughly enjoyed that. And it actually made the kids even more excited about Star Trek. They're
Oh,
like, this is awesome, I want more. So it's
I know. And
really
it's so
yeah.
funny. I mean, we're getting totally off topic, but after you watch the Picard, it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like it's like, is there actually anything better
Yeah.
than this series? I mean, I mean, he's amazing.
Oh my gosh,
But
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's it's awesome. I mean, and I just referenced the Borg, hello, because
Yeah,
it's like unless we are living in that type of society, which we are absolutely not, there is not
yeah,
one person that is I mean, okay, let's look at all the tarot decks that have like burst
yeah,
into the world in the last, I don't know, handful of years, right?
yeah.
Um, are they all the same? No, I mean,
No,
everything is different. So how could
yeah,
there ever be any competition? It's not possible. Do
yeah.
you know?
And
Um,
I love that there's no right or wrong way to approach it. There's so many different approaches visually and written, like Charlie Claire Burgess' book, their writing on the Fifth Spirit Tarot
mm,
just exploded my perspective on tarot and gender and sexuality in the most
mm,
magical way. And I love that there are so many different decks, so anyone coming to this
yeah,
practice can find something that resonates for them, can
yeah,
find something that reflects their experience or their passion or whatever it is. Like I just
yeah.
purchased a Buffy the Vampire Slayer tarot, and it is fantastic
Oh, wow.
because I started watching this series with my 14-year-old because I kind of missed it back in the 90s.
Yeah,
And once we got past some of the like fat phobia, diet culture, sexism stuff that's
yeah,
kind of
which,
underlying a lot
yeah,
of the 90s
no,
stuff,
totally.
once we decided that we would appreciate it in spite of while being aware of that.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's so over the top. It's so
Oh, yeah.
campy. It's so dramatic and all the 90s fashions. But the tarot deck that was created, the artwork is so beautiful, and the reference points that they use for some of the cards are so on point. And the more we work through the series, the more I'm like, oh, that showed up in a tarot card.
Ah,
Oh, Kendra, she's the star. That makes so much sense, right? Like,
wow.
and it's amazing to take something, like I know a lot of folks that are really into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so to be able to bring that in the context of tarot and allow that to deepen your practice. I
Yeah.
know there's a Stranger Things deck, like there's all of these pop culture decks,
Right.
Hocus Pocus, like whatever it is that you're passionate about, you can find that in the tarot, whether you're passionate about animals or nature or whatever else, right? There's something so magical about that for me, that everyone can find themselves in the practice,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's so
It
beautiful.
is.
And like every time I pick up one of your decks, it sparks so much joy for me because your art is just so beautiful. And for me, like Dominic doesn't practice tarot, my husband, but if he did, he'd have one deck. It would probably be the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith,
Yeah.
and that would be the only thing
Yeah.
he would ever need to use. So, he just looks at my tarot collection and kind of shakes his head. But for me, it's art
Oh,
appreciation as much
yeah.
as it is tarot appreciation, and every single deck has a different feel to it. So, if I'm coming to my practice and I need something specific, then, I can reach for the Gentle Tarot, or I can reach for Super Lunaris, or I can reach for one of your beautiful decks, and it's going to give me whatever I need at that particular time. That's not to say that you need to have more than one deck. I mean, you could use one deck and that would be fine.
Yeah.
But I just love how many creative folks in our community are creating these
Oh my God.
beautiful creations, like the Astral Mermaid Tarot
Yeah.
that Danielle Norman just came out with. It's just so beautiful and
Yeah.
vibrant, and it's mermaid themed. Like
Hmm.
it's such a beautiful celebration of what the tarot can
Yeah.
be, and that's so
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah,
I
that's
was looking at
amazing.
that deck recently. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is unbelievable. And it's just like we don't wear the same outfit every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our energy changes. We
Yeah,
grab for something new
yeah.
that fits how we feel. It it is really unbelievable. I mean, I think the
Mm-hmm.
great thing is like when I was 15 and I started reading, I think when I went to the metaphysical store, there were maybe five
Yep.
options, and I picked up the Thoth and I
Mm-hmm.
literally read with that deck
Mm-hmm.
for over a decade. That was the only
Yeah,
deck
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
And it was almost like, just from my generation, it was almost shocking when I started seeing all these decks coming out. I felt immensely overwhelmed. I was like,
yeah,
oh my God, there's more than this deck I have in my hand. Like, how do
yeah,
I?
yeah,
But, obviously we're in it now, we're used to it. And
yeah, yeah,
um, it just makes me appreciate and be more specific about what I'm bringing into
yeah.
my hands, like,
Absolutely.
and
For me,
everyone
it
is
was,
doing.
yeah, absolutely. For me, I started with the Mystic Fairy Tarot because that was literally one of the five decks that was available at a
Yeah.
metaphysical store in Calgary,
Oh,
Alberta, when I was like
wow.
18 years old, right? And I mean, we're talking
Mhm.
Texas North,
Yeah.
right-wing conservative, so even finding this little shop tucked away and
Right.
everything else. And then I kind of I mean, I read tarot off and on throughout that time, and then I really got into it again in about 2016 when a really good friend of mine introduced me to the Wild Unknown Tarot,
Oh, yeah.
and that was my go-to only deck. I want to say a year or two, I would just pull daily cards from that deck, and it's kind of loosely based around RWS, but it's not really a traditional deck. It's more animal themed and everything else. I mean, everyone knows the Wild Unknown, but it was such a great entry point into my practice,
Yeah.
just that daily routine. And I think there is something to be said for working with one deck and getting really familiar with the meanings of the cards and everything else. Like, I think the Queen of Cups in that deck is a swan. And if
Yeah.
that doesn't perfectly encapsulate the energy of the Queen of Cups, gentle
Yeah.
and nurturing, but you don't want to get in between a swan and their young, or a swan
That's
and pretty much
right.
anything, because they can be super aggressive,
Right.
right? And there's that side to the Queen of Cups, and so that's kind of, I feel like, almost forever informed
Yeah.
how I view certain cards, right, in a
Oh,
really
yeah.
magical way. And then that's just been kind of, I don't know about you, but I'm a huge fan of guidebooks. Like I love, love, love your workbook. It is incredible. It's such a beautiful
Thank
resource.
you. So
And even the first guidebook that you have for this first edition, I mean, it's such a lovely book and it's so in depth. And I love that if I pull a card one particular day and I need some additional insight or reflection or a different lens to view the card
yeah,
from, I can pull out the guidebook,
right.
and your beautiful writing on the tarot will give me an additional insight that maybe I hadn't thought of or reflected
Yeah.
on. Or like sometimes I'll pull out a guidebook and there's one line that forever
Oh
changes
yeah.
how I see that card.
Yeah.
Like the Fifth Spirit for the Emperor card, Charlie Clare, they talk about responsible stewardship. And that's always stuck with me in that whole idea, because the Emperor can get a bad rap for being too controlling, too dominant, you know, like these kind of systems and structures. But that idea of responsible stewardship and taking your leadership and using it to
Yeah.
promote the well-being and safety of the people around you. I mean, that was such a powerful moment, right? Like, it's so beautiful.
Totally.
And I love that you put so much care into your guidebook and the workbook, because it really creates a beautiful focus point for the practice as well. Do you have a guidebook for the Wanderlust collection that
No,
for that
the
deck, or is it all just included on the
it's
backs of the cards? I mean, you've
yeah,
already included
that
so much
one.
information.
Yeah, that's just included in the deck, and the crystal
Yeah,
cards is also in the deck. I have
yeah.
been sort of thinking of a radiant crystal workbook,
Oh,
but that's
cool.
yeah, that has been started and now sitting there. So yeah, but yeah, the other decks and the Marseille deck is going to get a PDF workbook
Oh,
version.
beautiful. That's
Um,
incredible.
yeah, and maybe someday I'll print that one. But you know, it's hard. Marseille, like we were just saying about Marseille, it's
Yeah,
hard in the US. I'll be
yeah,
honest. Like
yeah.
in the States, Marseille is a little
Mhm.
more foreign, and
Yeah,
um, so yeah, that one's a little
yeah,
trickier.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the digital format makes a
yeah,
lot of sense because there is the same level of cost that goes into production, and
yeah,
yeah, especially. I love that you made a Marseille deck though. Like I have to admit, I'm relatively new to that compared to the RWS, which is I think the main deck that most folks in North America tend to gravitate
mm-hmm.
towards. But it's so exciting to me to be able to explore another approach to
Yeah,
tarot and all of the numerological references that go into that deck, and cross-referencing, not just different suits, but the numbers across suits. Okay, so how does a Four
yeah,
of Swords correspond with a Four of Cups, Four of Wands, Four of Pentacles? Like, what do those four cards have in common across the different suits? Like, that
oh,
is so
yeah,
fascinating to me to look at
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Though that information will be in the digital workbook.
Oh, that's
That
so fabulous.
that
Yeah.
or kind of like detailed information.
Mhm.
It really is awesome. And with a Marseille, like if you've been reading a long time, you can
Mhm.
absolutely reference. Everything for me is visual. So like
Yeah.
if I'm reading the Marseille and I'll
Mhm.
pull up a like a five of swords, I don't know,
Yeah.
my brain will immediately just go to the five of swords and the RWS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
all of these things are reference points,
Yeah.
and you use them
Absolutely.
in the deck.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
you can use
actually
them in the way that makes sense to you.
yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
great way to kind of learn too, is have
Mhm.
um, a Marseille deck and an RWS and flip the
Yeah.
cards together so they're the same
Yeah.
cards and just kind of
Absolutely.
get a reference, and then
Yeah.
the numerology cards and have those
Mhm.
down there too. So yeah. Um,
Oh, that's such a beautiful way to build a practice together. And because the visual style that you've created throughout these decks is so cohesive, there's connection points visually through each of those things.
yeah.
I'm gonna 100% do that, lay out the cards together, because that's such a beautiful way to deepen your understanding of the
Mm-hmm.
cards themselves. And I find it so fascinating because with RWS, like every suit tells a story, right? Like I
Yeah.
know James R. Eads with the Prisma Visions has the whole suit, and you can lay it out and it becomes one big mural. And
Yeah.
I love that because it visually demonstrates the through line of the
Oh,
story of each of the suits.
yeah.
And that happens with the major arcana in every deck.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so what you had said about the Marseille being based on your intuition is so meaningful for me, because when you just see a number of items on a card, there's a bit more freedom of interpretation, right? Like you're not seeing, let's say, the Three of Swords with the three swords that are gouging a heart in the traditional RWS. It feels very charged and it feels very jarring and it feels very sad, which it is. But when you just see the three swords on a Marseille, it opens up the interpretation to something different. So if you get another intuitive pull from that card, it could mean something completely different and a little less charged, right? So I
Yes.
love that that particular style opens up the interpretation in a way that's very freeing, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I tend to get sometimes I've got a very free floating side of my brain that's very intuitive
Yeah.
and very, visual. And then I've got this like rigid side
Yeah.
of my brain that like needs things to go a certain
Yeah.
way. And so being able to step out of that and access more of that intuitive side, I think is a really beautiful
Yeah.
gift with the birthday approach. And the cards that you've created for that are so aesthetically beautiful that it almost also pulls in, like when I'm working with a deck that's particularly visually stunning, I feel like that also taps into the creative side of your
Oh,
brain, right? Like
yeah.
it allows you to kind of go into that intuitive zone in a really beautiful way.
Oh, that's so for sure. Yeah. Yeah. If you resonate, I mean, for me, Zara Kitten Chops, I mean, one, she's such a dear person to me, but her
Oh,
decks
yeah,
are, I mean, I don't know, they get into my soul.
yeah,
So, when you have that connection with the deck, and again, this goes back to the beauty of there being so many decks. Like
yeah,
when you have that connection, it's like you said, it's almost as if it's just effortlessly
yeah.
drawing you in, drawing out intuition. And
I'm gonna check out
that's,
those decks after this because that sounds absolutely
oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
She actually lives near me. We live in
Oh,
I hope I'm not
that's
giving her away
amazing.
if Zara watches this. um, yeah, she's just a beautiful person.
Oh, that's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, finding the soul decks is so important.
Mhm.
It's just,
Yeah,
it's like finding a diamond. I mean, it's just
yeah.
such a treasure.
That
Yeah.
kind of resonance with something like I just recently discovered it's I think the Silver Acorn Tarot by Stephanie Buscema. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that was one of those things, like sometimes you see a deck and it just hits you like right here,
Right.
and it's just this feeling of resonance. And I saw that deck and it just was like, oh my goodness, like I'm just looking, there's a postcard that came with the deck, and this is the sun card,
Oh, I was
and
gonna
it's a
say, yes, I know
pumpkin,
that
and
deck.
it's
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, and all of the animals, like it's all
Yeah.
anthropomorphized animals or fruit or
Oh,
vegetables, and there's
that's
like
so
corn
cute.
people, and
Yeah.
there's like a carrot
Yeah.
person, and it's like a beautiful hybrid of like fall and yet a
Oh,
little bit of Halloween, and just like the
yeah.
color palette and the aesthetic, right? Like when you see something like that, like one of your decks or Stephanie's deck, it just hits you, and there's a
Yeah.
sense of connection with it. And it was a real wake up call for me too, to really focus on the decks that, because I mean, if you're a magpie at heart, the tarot community is a wide world of
Oh, yeah.
temptation. But it's
Yeah.
like now, if I'm going to look at something, it has to be that
Mm.
that feeling of like rightness when you see it. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean? For the visual.
oh, I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it just has to resonate. I mean, for me
hmm,
now,
yeah,
like there are so many that are deck collectors, and
hmm,
I just, hello, I absolutely appreciate that. I think that's so beautiful. I mean,
yeah,
and um, yeah, I mean, going back to what you said earlier too, I personally love the indie copy.
hmm,
I love that there's so much energy to me in the indie copy. I don't know what
hmm,
that's about. I
yeah,
almost never buy mass market decks. That's
hmm,
just me personally. Nothing against anything. It's
yeah,
just the indie. I feel as though I'm feeling the person, like that
hmm,
that energy's there.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's just awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much creativity, and as someone who is not a visual artist, I'm definitely not, to be able to appreciate the art that all of these fabulous creators within our community creates. Like it's amazing.
Oh, it's amazing.
So as of right now, you have the pre-orders on for the Metanoia. I got that right this time. Okay, Metanoia.
So sorry to everybody.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, no. I just want to make sure I get it right, and I'm going to feel like I have marbles in my mouth half the time. And the Wanderlust collection, and those pre-orders are on until this evening.
Yeah.
And then on your Etsy, I believe you still have the Tarot Lenormand and the Meraki Tarot and Radiant Crystal, and then a whole bunch of. I have the journal as well that I've been using as my bullet journal for this year, and I absolutely love it. It's been incredible.
Oh, beautiful.
So great. Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, yeah, because in addition to your decks, you also have some other really amazing things on your Etsy shop as well that are just so beautiful. And yeah, I mean, everything you create is so stunning, and I love that there's, and actually, I know it's way outdated, it's 2021, but I still have the calendar of the year up on my desk because it's so pretty.
I actually love that. I was looking at that and I was like, it's so hard because those are hard to sell, you know, those one-offs.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I know it's like multiple years out of date now, but I don't even mind because it's so visually stunning that I keep it there.
Sweet. I may have to make a new one. I love that.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. It's such a nice reference point. I have one for this year by Haley Kim from the Divine Arts Tarot. She did a really lovely one for this year that's up on my wall. And it's, yeah, so the two of them actually complement each other because they have some of the same tones, and it's just so lovely. Like the aesthetic is just, you both have your own distinct style, but they complement each other in really beautiful ways.
I love it. Oh, that's great.
She's a tattoo artist as well, actually. Once we get settled, I'm going to go and visit her for some tattoos, as we were talking about before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. My next one's coming up.
Oh, yeah. Did you decide on what you want to get done?
I think something related to birds, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm all covered in florals.
Yeah.
So something
florals are beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking like I'm trapped in a in a floral bush. I'm like, maybe something a little different.
There's nothing wrong with that. The florals are gorgeous. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, amazing. So everyone can find you at bouchettedesignsshop.com for your basic website, not basic website, for your main website, and then you also have an Etsy shop, and you're available here on Instagram as well, and post so many beautiful photos of your decks too. Like, I just love how they're all laid out, and you profile everything so beautifully. It's really lovely.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Really, really, really amazing. I'm just going to check how we're doing for time here. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I think we've been chatting for about an hour. I don't want to take too much more time away. I know the weekend's coming up and everything, but it's been such a pleasure chatting with you about your beautiful work and about tarot and about Star Trek. I didn't know that we would have an opportunity to talk about Star Trek, but I love it. That's so amazing. I wonder if there's a Star Trek deck out there. Now I'm curious because...
I actually feel as though I'm seeing one. I feel as though I've seen one.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think there might be, but I'm not sure.
Interesting. Yeah. I feel like there's a deck for everything now, which is
gosh.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I'm still waiting for the Star Trek button to come around. Who's gonna make the button so I could just press the button and be with you right now?
I know. Wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah.
I keep saying that to Dominic and the kids. Like, I wish that I could just be beamed up and go and visit the people that I care about, because everyone's so spread out.
Like, how come we can't disintegrate and come back? I just don't understand.
I know, right? I know, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit when Dominic was talking about, yes, well, it's technically a little bit of a death every time you do it, because you get completely taken apart and then put back together again. So it's like you 2.0, and I was like, What?
Yeah, it looks highly frightening, but
Yes,
yeah,
that would be so amazing. Like, cut out airline travel completely. I would be all for that.
right.
That would be wonderful. No offense to a
Uh,
lot of the wonderful folks that work for airlines as well, but it's
uh,
just become quite a process.
yes,
So, yeah,
yes.
yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you for
Awesome. Well,
having me. I
thank you
love
so
being
much
with
for
you.
joining me. This is
Yeah,
amazing. I always enjoy our chat so
me
much.
too.
And for anyone who was not able to join us for the whole chat, I'll be saving this to my Instagram, so you'll be able to tune in and
Cool.
find it there.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
and thank you,
Thank you
Jules.
so
Okay,
much. Thank you,
bye-bye.
and I hope you have a wonderful
Oh,
weekend.
you too.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.